You're listening to the Homeboys podcast, recorded in our Indiana office and with combined 40 years of experience. Here's your hosts, Clint and Scott.
Hey, real estate investors. You're with the Homeboys. My name is Clint Wetherill. We're excited to have you today. We've got a topic that I feel like everyone is interested in. If for nothing else, it's something that's been on cable TV forever. This is house flipping 101. We both have a ton of experience in house flipping. Everyone likes the thought of putting money in your pocket right away. We're here to talk about the good things with it, the bad things, kind of what we do. We still do some of it, but we're a little bit limited in it. But we're more along the lines of long-term investing, but really at the core of my heart, there's still a certain house flipper that exists because that's how I started in real estate. But as always, I'm here with my delightful co-host, Mr. Scott Adams. What's up?
How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. This is a exciting day. We have an intern here at the office. It's his last day. We just had the entire team here. My kids were here running around like crazy.
Yeah, I just had to wipe the sweat off my forehead because I was running around with them playing dart guns.
You forgot what it's like to have little kids running around like that, didn't you?
It's better though when it's not yours because you can get them as wound up as you want and then be like, see ya, good luck.
That's right.
Good luck. So it's all the fun with none of the responsibility. But Alex, our intern, is he's an amazing kid. He reminds me of young you and young me in a lot of ways. He's really fired up about real estate. He's ready to just go.
Wants to soak everything up he can. It's pretty neat to watch. I know you were probably a lot more like him at that age.
Yeah.
You know, I was just an absolute idiot in college. You know, he's getting ready to go back for his senior year, and I think it makes me think about how I was before my senior year. I wasn't very career focused or investment focused at that time in my life. I know you were a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I had this. I was scared. You know, I was running on fear, on what my life would be like. I knew deep down that I didn't want to have to get a job, and that scared me. Mm-hmm. And so I was a little more focused on it, just out of fear. You were still on fun mode, you know, and I was
still wish I was on fun mode a little bit.
I know. I told my kids that. I'm like, don't get too serious too fast in college. Yeah. You know, this is a time for freedom too, and exploration, learning who you are, having fun. You know, this is they talk about the pressure at school, and I just think to myself, you don't know what pressure is. This is the time when you should be able to enjoy.
They have no clue what pressure is.
Yeah,
no clue.
Well, they put too much pressure on themselves. I think that's across the board anymore with a lot of the young folks. It's okay to not pressure yourself to do everything right away. You know, I really like that gap year thing that a lot of, I guess, Europeans and others do. There's something neat about it. It's like the last time in your life you probably won't have a ton of responsibilities to do those things.
And me and my one of my best buddies, college roommate Ronnie, we had this whole plan. You know Ronnie well, and we had this whole plan after we graduated college that we were going to move to Florida and be bartenders, kind of like Tom Cruise and Cocktail. And just kind of be beach bums and live it up. And we talked about that forever. And then I wussed out and got a pathetic job out of college that I hated.
Right.
You know, and I was thinking, man, you know, should have taken that time, you know, to get away.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for folks who are willing to take the less kind of highly regarded path, but it still brings in fulfillment and happiness. And there's a balance there because you can go do that and just have no actual fulfillment, you know, deep actual fulfillment and live a shallow life of fun. But there are people who are able to pull that off and also have the fulfillment. And I think it's neat when I see people do that. I mean, money's overrated, you know.
Totally.
So, but so anyway, I was pretty driven on flips, wanting to do flips my senior year of college. And you got right into flips when you got into the business.
That was my entire plan.
Yeah.
That was my entire business, was just flipping houses.
Yeah.
You know, and why I don't know. I guess I saw Flip This House on A&E, and
was that out already then?
I think so. You know, there was a few books that I remember, like some, you know, had print that big because that has to be print that big for me to be able to read it. That, you know, read up about it a little bit. But yeah, that was it for me. I wanted to be a house flipper, and
I did too. I met Gary Apter, who is kind of the original gangster of Indianapolis.
He is an OG.
And one of the original flippers here who did it right. There was a lot of guys who didn't do it right. He did it right. He had great reputation, sound business, and a lot of success. I know he's surrounded by multi-millionaires, so he's always looking around him, wanting to climb even higher on that mountain. But I mean, his level of success in flipping is amazing. So I had that to motivate me. That was my junior year in college when I first met him. And so that was a big inspiration, him and a couple of other guys locally. So when I saw what they were doing with flips, and that's all they did. It was just, A&E type flips. You buy a house, you fix it up nicer, and you stick a sign in the yard and you sell it. And it's very attractive. And it's very, excuse me. It's sexy and it seems cool, but at its core, there's some other things that we believe in that are actually a little more boring, but actually better long-term plans.
Well, let's face it. I mean, especially when you get your start. I mean, graduating from Indiana University, I was broke as a joke. Had no money.
Right.
And thinking about flipping real estate, and let's talk a little bit about flipping here versus other parts of the country in a minute. But flipping here, making a $20,000 profit, call it, on a flip. I mean, $20,000 was life-changing, money at that time. I mean, my first job out of college, I was making $45,000, a year, and then I got into sales and a little bit more than that. But so $20,000 was a huge deal. Flash forward to today, and said the Lord's been good to us many times on this show. $20,000 doesn't really change things. We're looking more long-term. So
But back then we were individual guys. So, I was doing a lot of flipping, so were you, and I would also basically be flipping whatever house I lived in. So I would buy a foreclosure to live in, fix it up, make that one really nice. And I remember I have a picture of this house on my office wall that an artist drew, and it's on Broadway here in Indianapolis, and that area was up and coming at that time. I bought it, and over that 11 months that I owned it and fixed it up, that area had appreciated a bunch, and I made six figures on that house. I don't know if I ever told you that. And so that was 1999 or 2000, and I thought, okay, that was just my personal house. That wasn't even part of my business plan. And I thought, okay, if I can make $100,000 a year on the house I live in, plus then everything else is gravy. Keep in mind, you and I were real small then. We didn't have employees. I mean,
one-man show, man.
Right. We were just buying houses, fixing them up, and selling them.
I wish I was a one-man show now.
I know. There's times where I do too, but,
I shouldn't say that. I love everybody we work with.
We're real
I truly
lucky.
love them. I love them.
Oh, I know you do. I mean, we were just in here. We had the whole team here for celebrating Alex's last day. And,
Incredible.
And it's so neat, But at the same time, there's truth. We have to be honest about it. There's a small part of both of us, and I know it's true with you. It's true with me, that you romanticize that idea of being just a one-man show, and you're making all that money, and it doesn't have to go to overhead and all this stuff, and it felt like just cash in your pocket, So it felt different.
I was driving a two-door Ford Escort around.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I still think that's the most ridiculous story. So he bought a two-door Ford Escort out of fear, basically, which fear is a great motivator for young business people. It was a big motivator for me. It's been a big motivator for him. And so when he quit his day job, his first job out of college, in order to flip more, he didn't have to. He had plenty of money to be able to drive whatever the heck he wanted. Just to be safe, he sold his nice vehicle and bought a two-door junker to drive around just because he was scared about car bills and everything else.
Going into business was scary for me, and I think that going in, you have to have the balls to get in and go after it, but at the same time, being conservative with it, I think it helped me out a lot. I mean, I was very, very cheap, and everything I did, I was scared to death I was going to fail. I was afraid I was going to have to call my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, I fell on my face." Which I always told everybody. I always had that safety net behind me. Where my dad was always there to help me out. And,
sure.
Never used, but
maybe,
but it was. I always say, you know, if I'd grown up to be a failure, it would have been 100% on me because my dad set me up like, you know, he taught me the value of a dollar. He got me he paid for my college. Right. You know, pushed me to do the right things. You know, I always had that behind me where, you know, like I know a lot of people that didn't, you know, have that. It was a security blanket. It really was.
Sure.
You know?
I think that people might get the wrong impression from that, though, because I think you and I were similar in the fact that our parents gave us everything we could ever want to be able to launch. But at the same time, they were realists, and had we failed at launch, they would have been there to help support us in a way. But
and I'm not talking financially.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I'm not talking financially. You know, I wrecked my truck when I was a junior in high school, and it sat there till I got the money to pay for it because he wasn't going to pay for it. You know, I had to pay for my room and board and everything in school. Never, you know, I could tell you I've told you many of the crazy stories of that I would have to work, you know, for my dad for zero money. You know, it was never about that. It's just, you know, you always had someone wiser over you that, you know, you
believed in you and was willing to support. Well, let's dive in a little to the flips, and I think a decent place to start, if you're okay with this, is when speaking of A&E. I want to start kind of with that. So there's a few things that you and I both notice are usually missing from the math that they show on the screen on those. So let's talk the real basic math and kind of what's missing from what a lot of people put out there, and what you look for in a flip and how it works.
Well, I think that the TV shows, TikTok, Facebook, all of this stuff, you know, glorifies, you know, flipping real estate. You know, especially if you go back to the TV shows, don't forget that you have the power of a TV network behind these people that are doing these flipping shows. You know, whether it's you know, that Tarek and Christina that do it. There's some.
I won't know any of these.
You won't know any of them.
I don't watch any of that stuff.
But you know, there was a guy out of Alabama that was doing it for a while. But anyway, they've got the power of this network, and you know, they always sell their homes by way of open house. Like, it's so bananas. Like, no one's really doing, you know, selling off of open houses these days. It's all, you know, internet. But you know, the other thing that they leave off is, you know, they leave a lot of the closing costs off. They leave a lot of the realtor commissions off. They leave a lot of the carrying costs of money off, that this money's just free and it doesn't cost them anything. It's, you know, whereas a lot of house flippers are going to be, you know, going to have cost of, you know, carrying the money.
I'd say 99% have to use leverage in some sort, whether it's a line of credit. But even like you and I, we loan our company money, and we charge our company interest. That's just the way it is. So there's cost on when our company does flips, there's cost on that money. Sure, we're the bank, you know, personally, but there's interest, and that's never in those shows. You know, the carrying costs are never in there. The miscellaneous, you know, the trash fees and the lawn mowing while it's there, and all those little things.
You know, and this is a producer-driven show that they really know what they're trying to attain before they ever do it. You know, I mean, if you just watched, you know, someone make $2,300 on a flip, you know, probably not going to get the ratings that they want.
Right.
You know.
So I noticed they left the real estate commissions off of a lot of them do. On the ones I've seen, and that's a significant cost.
Especially with a lot of them are in California, you know. So if you're selling, you know,
$1 million home,
there's $60,000 in realtor, you know, fees that you. The other biggest thing I think that, you know, that you see on some of these shows and, you know, social media is an overinflation of what people are actually making on them because of these fees not being in there, and it gets people that, you know, that want to dive in, you know, to flipping real estate, you know, where they're watching people make $200,000 a house. And, you know, I think it's important to note that geographically there are huge differences. Like you mentioned your first house on Broadway where you had made six figures on. You know, six figures is almost unheard of in this market.
Right.
You know, we've done it, you know, I've done it a few times. But it's very few and far between. You know,
I don't know if there's got to be another one in there where I made that, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Because it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I would say my average money profit on flips, including the early parts of my career, is probably between $10,000 and $15,000. It's my average profit.
Absolutely.
You know,
I told everyone that whenever I was doing the bulk of my flips and I was representing other people flipping, a bad deal was 10, a great deal was 30.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it falls, you know, right in that line. You know, it's just doing flips that you think that you're going to make. If your model is to only make $75,000 in a market like Indianapolis, good luck. I mean, I hope that you can make it, but very difficult to do.
Flips can go wrong a lot easier too than the long-term plays. So with flips, you and I did one of our first flips that we did jointly was in Carmel, where I live, and it went sideways. There was a lot of reasons. It wasn't rehabbed right. There was some pet urine smells.
Smoky Row.
Yeah. That we painted over the.
That was the street the house was on.
That was on Smoky Row. We painted over the subfloor, but the guy didn't use Kills or the right stuff, so it didn't seal it in.
I couldn't stand that dude.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I couldn't stand that.
And
dude.
then it sat forever. It wouldn't sell. And then
Talking about our contractor, that guy
then,
thought he knew everything.
Then you got
He was an
carrying
idiot.
costs, and you got bad contractors not doing what they said, and it just snowballs so quick. So, with flips, you got to account for all of the little hidden costs that the shows won't show you. So, you're going to have some cost of money. You're going to have carrying costs of all kinds of sorts, trash fees, water and electric bills, all of those things. You're going to have real estate commissions when you do sell it. And, you just got to account for all of those things. And so you got to go in with your eyes wide open. And then you have to have a margin in there for, errors and things that were found during the rehab. So I want people to go into flips with their eyes wide open when they do them. And I think people would be shocked at what we would pay for a house in order to make 10 to 15 grand. We're talking paying $50,000 on a house that's worth $100,000, and you still only make 10 to 15 grand.
Oh,
if things go right.
We'll do the math. Say it's worth $100,000, you buy it for $50,000.
Right.
$20,000 in rehab costs.
Pretty reasonable.
You're at $70,000.
Right.
Call it another $5,000 in points or carrying costs or anything else if someone is getting a loan.
Right.
Then you pay $7,000 in realtor fees.
Right.
And then you have another $3,000 in
Overruns.
Just the closing costs.
Oh, right.
When you get
Right.
whenever you
real
sell,
estate
you're gonna have to pay
taxes,
taxes and
all that stuff.
all of that. I mean, then you pay some capital gains, taxes on it. What are you left with?
Right.
I mean, a house that you bought for $50,000 that you put $15,000 in, you're left with $10,000.
Right. And so people will say, "Well, you bought that house for $50 grand. It's worth $100. That's awesome." I don't know. Is it? Isn't that awesome? There's a couple of hedge funds that really it kind of solidified my thinking with sometimes it's just not worth it. So you buy a house for $50, you got to put 20 in it. Let's say it overruns by 10. By the time you add everything up, you're in it for the 100 that it's worth. Mm-hmm. And the hedge funds kind of figured that out a little bit. And they started just buying retail houses that people were living in because they knew they were ready to go and there wasn't going to be rehab overruns. They quit trying to buy value, a while ago. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's so hard to get this right and to flip. It's just very difficult to do, and it's pretty high risk, and there's high dollars involved. And if things go bad, it can go bad for a very long period. So it's a little riskier than what you and I have evolved to focus on more, which is the long-term holds and long-term rentals. I understand the sexiness behind the flips. It's what got us into the business. It's fun. It's neat. I mean, it's what we do is boring. We say it all the time. Mm-hmm. Boring. This is not. Flipping isn't. It's fun. You go to
it's a rush, man.
Pick out the lights.
Yeah.
You used to love doing that.
It's a drug of real estate.
It is. It's neat. You make a place cool. You have these ideas. You add, shiplap to one wall for, $400, and suddenly that room's transformed. It's neat. It can feed your passion. But it also isn't as rewarding financially as long-term holds. It just isn't. I just don't believe it is.
If you could scale it and you're also in a market at the right time, it can be financially rewarding.
Right.
So let's talk about, let's call it 2005 to compare it to now. So now we have so much owner-occupant competition, that houses aren't staying on the market at all. There's very few HUD foreclosures. We talked about foreclosures in a previous podcast where there's very few. It's going to be a while before there are foreclosures. Trying to find a deal that works in this hot real estate market is exceptionally challenging. And the houses that are available, you need to be a very experienced remodeling expert to do the houses that are available now. Because the houses that we see available where there would be flipping opportunities, you're buying a house for $50 that needs $70,000, and then it's worth $160.
Right.
So it's and you're not getting rehab money when you walk into your local bank to get money to purchase a house. Or these houses you can't even get financing, traditional financing on anyway.
Let's say they had a line of credit, though. They could buy the house using the line of credit, but usually the line of credit won't let them use it to rehab the house.
Very challenging to do in this climate, but say you did.
Yeah, but most of them won't, so you'd have to come out of the rehab money, out of pocket. But even if you did have the ability to finance that rehab, you got to plan on a 10% over/under on your rehab at least. And when you're getting into the $70,000 rehabs, $70,000, you can just plan on it turning into 77. And if more goes wrong, it can quickly turn into 80, 85.
Oh, and
90.
the houses that are available, there's going to be a lot that goes wrong.
Right.
You're not buying a house built in 1950, and you put a scope of work together, and it just so magically happens at that number or below it. It doesn't happen.
So I'm going to explain why real quick, why these are the houses that are available, and then we can sit back and joke about in our early careers how we were only having to carpet and paint. So you knew to the
that's
penny.
what I want to talk about 2005 in a second, but yes.
So the reason that these are the properties that you're seeing on the market, the only ones that are deals to flip are high rehabs. It's because they're the only ones that owner-occupants really can't compete on. And anything that an owner-occupant can buy right now will sell for, way above what the value for a flipper is. It's just the way it is. You're competing with people who will pay more than what you can to make any money on it. So you've got that the stuff below anything an owner-occupant could even consider. You have to look at that batch of stuff, and it's all high rehab. So anyway, that's why that is, just in case you were wondering. And so back to 2005.
Yeah, so, this is whenever I'm start really hitting my stride in real estate. You've been doing it a little bit longer than me at that point, but we didn't know what a phenomenal time that was. Like, you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Right.
The old Cinderella song. Remember that?
I would sing it
Hair
right
band.
now, but I don't want to hurt everyone's.
Don't know what you got till it's gone. Yeah, anyway.
That was Cinderella?
Cinderella. Yeah. Anyway, coming out of college and getting into real estate, it was a time where there was all of these new foreclosures that were hitting the market, where builders were building these 300, 400, 500, 600 home communities, and they weren't disclosing, taxes. So they were selling everything based off of payment. Then the payment goes up. All these houses foreclosed. And I just thought that's how it was. I was buying a house that was 3 years old at 50% of the cost of what they originally sold it for, and I was putting like paint and carpet in it only.
Right.
And
so, so let's back up. So to 2005, when these builders would come in, they'd build these kind of first-time home buyer level houses. Back then, they were, say, $105,000 for a ranch and $125,000 for a two-story. And the builder would sell that house, but taxes wouldn't be assessed for 2 years on these properties. That's just how convoluted our tax system in Indiana is. And so these people would buy the house, their mortgage payment would be $700 a month, and then literally 2 years later, when their taxes would hit, they would have to start paying $1,100. So their payment would go up from $700 to, say, $1,100 a month to make up for some past taxes and all these other assessments. So you could time a neighborhood when it would have foreclosures flood it. So literally at the 2-year mark, you would start watching a neighborhood and say, okay,
you're so right. I mean, that's exactly. I couldn't agree more.
And so it was a cycle, and that cycle continued because what would happen then is they would sell us foreclosures. Some people would come in and buy them who probably shouldn't because they were foreclosures, get a deal. Then they couldn't afford it, and it would cycle again. So usually these neighborhoods we saw cycle twice. They were double hit. But anyway, the point is these properties aren't available anymore. So Clint would go in, and so would I, of course, and we would buy these. We call them vinyl villages here in Indiana, it's just a village with vinyl siding.
Brick facade, 3 sides vinyl.
Right.
Yeah.
They just pop them up overnight, these simple built houses. And they're good houses. They're great. They make great rentals too. But, when they would foreclose, the only thing you needed was paint and carpet. At most. And if they had screwed up the cabinets, you go in and you just paint the cabinets. So, I mean, just wasn't much to do to them.
No.
And they held value and could appraise, and you could sell them. People wanted them. So it was a great little product. And like we've talked about, it was a product you could count on. You could say, okay, well, good, that neighborhood, Hanover Crossing, I've got another year on that, so let me finish out doing this neighborhood. And then by the time I'm done flipping houses in here, I know that neighborhood's coming. I mean, you were the king of a few of those neighborhoods. You and Apter, too.
Yeah, I planted my flag in a handful, call it a dozen of them.
Right.
Many houses in each of those neighborhoods where I could tell you every street within that neighborhood to this day.
Oh. But those were the glory days, and that doesn't really exist right now, and it may again. But flipping has some risks to it. It's
if that ever came back, I'd ditch your ass so quickly, and I'd be on my own.
I know. Just leave all the employees behind. That's right. See ya
later. No, I wouldn't. But I mean, it was so cool. I mean,
I agree.
I mean, I was doing the work on a lot of it myself there for a while, but then got basically a paint crew and a flooring crew,
right.
And I was doing.
It's a great way to get into the business. Mm-hmm. For folks out there, we believe in long-term holds. We believe it has lower risk and it is a greater way to build wealth than flips. However, I get it. Flips can be fun. Flips is a great way to get into the business. You also can do it with a little bit of money as long as you can borrow from people or a bank, a line of credit, or other means. There's all kinds of ways you can scramble to make it happen. It's a great way to learn, have a full-speed education in this. We don't focus on it. We don't focus on it for our clients at all, because we don't believe in offering products to our clients that are that high of risk, and we just don't believe in it for our clients. I understand why individuals would go out and do it, and we even encourage you, go do it if that's what you want to do. It's a great way to learn. Mm-hmm. But keep in mind, there is we think a better alternative, which is what we focus on, which is the long-term building of wealth through holding real estate.
So we like flipping.
Love it. It's fun.
It's great. Would you agree that really know your market and know when flipping could be a thing would be step number one? Like, I would advise against it right now because of the way everything is. Like, I mean, even owner-occupants are saying, oh, yeah, I'd love to sell my house and ring the register, but then I don't know where I'm going to go. It's the same thing for real estate investors trying to find houses to flip. It would be because, I mean, there's just not a lot out there.
Yeah, it's so risky no matter when you do it. I was just thinking to myself, well, what if a bunch of houses came on the market? Would I recommend it then? Well, then I'd say it's kind of scary because maybe the appreciation is going to fall off and you bought based on that. So, it's always scary.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of risk. Let me put another scenario out there for real estate investors that I believe works a heck of a lot better if you're wanting to flip.
Yeah.
Build your portfolio of real estate.
Right.
10, 15, 20, 25 homes. Build that portfolio of real estate. And then, and do it to where, you have as little money out of your pocket as possible. Be very focused on paying the debt service. Very slow, boring approach. And then you've got this portfolio of real estate. And then depending on the market, you can flip whenever the hell you want.
It's true.
So you have 25.
And you can upgrade those.
You have 25 homes, and you have a market. Say you're in a market like this, and you say, "Well, I've got 5 non-performers that kind of struggled from time to time. I haven't had the best tenants. I've had some bad luck. Sell them, ring the register. You could do a 1031 exchange, which is, I don't want to get into that too much because we're not accountants, but, it's basically a tax deferment, plan, build your portfolio even more. But with a portfolio of real estate, then your options, you have so many more options, with what you can do.
So true.
If you go in and just say, oh, I'm a house flipper and that's what I'm going to do and that's it. Man, you hit a great recession like we did in 2008 and 9. Good luck selling it. It ain't going to happen. Right. So, what's your exit strategy? If you're only a house flipper, that's it. You're not only going to be a house flipper for 30 years. Not going to happen.
Right.
You're going to go through economic cycles, and you're
going to have to hold if you're smart.
Correct. You're going to be left holding the bag.
Right.
On something that you're going to have to continue to dump money out of for carrying costs or whatnot if you're going to be only a house flipper.
Right.
It's evolve or die.
So as a house flipper, you have to be ready for the market changes is basically what Clint's saying is you have to be ready for those changes in a market. And so if the market does take a nosedive and you're a house flipper, you're going to have houses that you're flipping when the market takes a dive. And so a smart house flipper at that point won't sell them for a loss. I'll just add them to the portfolio rentals. What a great backup plan. What a great safety net. And then when the market comes back, you can sell off the ones you want from there. You've always got a rental portfolio that's building. It's a great mix. And it's kind of why I hate rental restrictions in neighborhoods. I harp on this sometimes because anyone who's smart, who lives in a neighborhood that won't let them turn their house into a rental, you kneecap those owners, because what happens if there's a downturn in the market and they have to change jobs and move out of town? Then they're forced to sell their house at the bottom of the market. Whereas if there was no rental restriction, they could just put a tenant in there for the next 3 or 4 years, wait for the market return, and sell it. Or just keep it forever and ride that out. And it just
dump the price and bring the values down of the entire neighborhood.
So basically that's, as a house flipper, you need that safety net of being able to turn anything into a rental. And I believe homeowners should have that safety net. You and I believe homeowners should never sell their house and they should just turn it into a rental. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole other story. But, having that safety net of building a portfolio at the same time it's saved us. Mm-hmm. It's saved us.
So kind of bringing this all together, we've said it a lot. I mean, how could you not like flipping real estate? It's fun. Yeah. You got to know the market that you're in, and I don't necessarily mean the geographical market. I'm talking about the sales climate, the supply and demand of real estate that's going on currently. And then the other step would be, or recommendation, I guess I should say, always have a plan B.
Yeah.
Don't just say, I'm a house flipper and that is it. Always have something that, if the market changes and goes the other way, which we saw it, we lived it for 3 years through the Great Recession, what do you do, if it hits the fan? Where do you go?
Right.
But, it's fun to talk about because I get kind of like that whole Steel Magnolias nostalgia thing going on, thinking about it, because they were great days. Like I loved doing it.
Flipping's fun.
And I think that on the show sometimes we just sound like a bunch of angry old men.
Yeah. The thing is, we've seen so many ways that things can go wrong. Mm-hmm. That I don't want to be a nervous Nelly and be crying about the sky is falling at all times. But it's served us well to understand the possible pitfalls that come along with this. That doesn't mean that we're not excited by flipping and that it was neat and that I wouldn't love to, go get in my Camaro, my 1994 Camaro, and go drive around and flip some houses. It was a neat time.
I'd love to see you in a full mullet.
Oh, if I could grow hair, I'd have a mullet right now.
Listening to some Motley Crue.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of Motley Crue, we gotta wrap this up. I saw Vince Neil of Motley Crue on Friday night at the State Fair.
Him and Russell Crowe are on the same meal plan.
Time has not been good. Time has not been good. But time's not been good to me either. So.
And he's lived 12 lifetimes,
I know it.
If I looked that good after living the way he's lived.
And that's the thing, these guys that we grew up idolizing, they're all 60, now.
That happens.
People do age once they get older.
Who would have thought?
I know, isn't it crazy? Well, we've got a lot of stories about flipping. We can't even really scratch the surface with some of the craziness that we've seen with flipping. And we know the sentiment that everyone loves to flip, and we agree, it's awesome. But be very cautious as always, and it always goes back, the homeboys believe in the holding of the real estate. That's the most important part, as Jerry Seinfeld so famously said. But anyhow, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop us a comment or reach out to us. Hit subscribe down there. We love cranking this content out for you, and there's going to be a lot more in the future. Hit us up. Till next time, we're the Homeboys. Happy investing.